Oh, it's time. It's been a long time coming, but the first two episodes of season 5 of Snowfall have dropped, and I'll give you my thoughts and reactions right after the joke. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, ring that bell below anytime we have something. You will be among the first to know. Let me tell you a little bit about the journey that I've had with Snowfall. I was not a day oneer. I know some people are. I joined on probably 2 episodes into season 4. Um, I watched all of them on Hulu in about a week and a half time, and I just fell in love with this series. And then season 4 happened. I'm like, wait, y'all ain't got any more of them Snowfall episodes? Start feeling like Wanda and all of them, like I was a fiend. And so I've been waiting for this for quite some time. It left you on a bit of a high. You were like, what is Teddy doing with Franklin's dad? What the hell is going on? And so we started getting a couple of answers here. Because of the way that this is aired and put out there, I'm going to refer to them as kind of one big smorgasbord of an episode, the debut, if you will. But episode 1 is called Comets, and episode 2 is called Commitment. And so those two are sort of the episodes that we're talking about as one big debut for Snowfall. We get a time jump. But before we do that, the sort of anchor that is this episode is they use the real life situation of Lynn Bias, who is a top 2 pick, I believe it was the second pick for the Boston Celtics. He was a huge user of cocaine, and he was just overdoing it. Celebrating is probably him being drafted, all of that stuff. He dies before he ever steps foot on the court for the Boston Celtics due to a cardiac arrhythmia that he has from overdosing on cocaine. It is a huge sort of nugget to just drop as the backdrop. Like it happens, and then it sort of just kind of scenes. You hear TV stuff happening in the background because I think there's going to be this impending thing that happens that there's going to be a lockdown or a breakdown or a huge clamping on the drug trade and cocaine because someone of such a high profile dies, and so that sort of sets the stage for what we get um, as this goes along. It also is clear that it's a lot more accessible to get cocaine than it was even 2 years ago. The time jump happens, and Franklin is super successful. Like he is living on cloud nine. He is doing everything that he can to try and legitimize his business, but he is very much the player. He's got a pilot's license. He's flying planes. He is living his best life, and so the first episode sort of acts to kind of put our players on the board, so you can kind of see where everybody is. Like I said, Franklin's out there living his best life. He's got a new girl who's handling all the business ventures, the building ventures, all of that stuff, and is separated enough from the muck of it that she can look like the legitimate situation of it all. Louis and Uncle Jerome have sort of formed this Bonnie and Clyde thing, much to like Jerome doesn't really want to be a part of this life, which gets brought up later in episode 2, but he's doing it because he loves Louis so much, and they've sort of become this. If you want to level down from Franklin, they've been this sort of club owners moving stuff in different parts of LA that it all umbrellas under Franklin, but they have now sort of a little bit more ownership and control of what they say. It's almost like a pie where he's at the top. Louis and Jerome are doing their thing, and Leon's sort of doing his thing in the hood. And Leon is sort of the what Franklin was at the very beginning of this. He's perfectly fine just being the corner boy, the man that handles the street. He doesn't want to take on any other ventures. He doesn't want to do any of that. This is where his sweet spot is. But he also still doesn't take any shit. He's a guy who shows up who's stealing from him and gets him new shoes. And his comeuppance is to have one of his feet take his foot and break it off with a crowbar. With a pipe, actually, with a pipe. And then leaves the shoes. But oh no, he earned them shoes. He can leave. He can have them. There's still a level of a street level that is happening there. It just shows you the 3 different tiers that is taking place in this drug trade. All of that is happening while the cost of cocaine needs to start dropping because it's flooding the market. It's just everywhere. People are selling it for a lot less than Franklin, so his numbers are starting to dwindle, and he can see it. So that's why he's starting to look at the bigger picture. To like, I need to expand. I need to do this. I need to clean some of this money and make it legitimate. Because what we learn through these 2 episodes is that he's going to be a father. So his impetus to try and legitimize this and kind of clean up the business and to make sure that there are no loose ends becomes even greater. And what we had at the beginning of the series for a guy who was not always ready to get his hands dirty, he's very much in the muck of it and doing the things that he probably should be having someone else do. Because within the first episode, the main thread after we meet everybody is that Rob, white boy Rob, who is one of the pushers for Franklin in the Valley with all the white kids. He was the son of the porn guy. If you're following along with the season, that's who Rob was. He's having a party with his friends. I think this kid I feel like his name is Ben. That sounds right. But they're having a good old time, and a kid comes up and just starts sniffing their coke without really talking to anybody, knowing anybody, and he's pushing up on one of the girls that Rob and them were hanging out with. And tempers infused, cocaine infused, brains infusing, Ben shoots this kid in front of everybody and kills him. Obviously in the Valley, white kids with coke party, all of that, that's getting the news. It's in the news immediately. Franklin's like, yo, what are you doing up there? We need to close up ranks. Now the problem is, Rob is also a basehead. He's on his own supply. And Franklin needs to clean it up. He knows that the other way that he's going to get any information or get to Ben, who's now on the run, he's gone. Rob is sort of like, go, and he's hidden, is that he needs to clean Rob up a bit to kind of get a clearer head to see where things are going. So in all of this, we learned that Franklin is still keeping the home that he used to stay in. He's now in a huge high rise. He's off the streets. Enough time has passed that he's done this well enough that he's making bank, that he is in a high rise off of this, but he still keeps his old home. He keeps his old home because we learned that Wanda is now completely clean. Carl was totally unrecognizable without all the bad teeth and everything. She's taking care of herself, and Leon requests Franklin to keep that house for her because she's having a hard time finding a job or getting any housing because she's a basehead. And one of her things that she has to sort of do to stay clean as part of her cleanliness and rehabilitation is that she needs to inform everybody, to be honest, that she was on drugs. So in doing that, it's hard. Like, yeah, that's the thing to do, but as a black person, as a black woman, it's going to be harder to find work when you throw that asterisk out there too. But she's got like a little sex operator sort of job that she has that's not really leading anywhere. But she lives in that home, and that's where Franklin goes to house Rob to sort of get him well enough that they can kind of go find this kid. And in that, Wanda sort of sees a little bit of who she was, because he's trying to get clean in Jones, and he's going through some of those withdrawals that she knows all too well. D-Ray's character even throws a little bit in her face, like, this was you, like, take care of him, you know what to do. Next morning, Rob tries to roll out. Franklin's like, nah, where do you think you're going? And he just needs to score and all of that. He's starting to realize that Rob is becoming more of a liability than necessary. He also asks Rob, like, hey, Rob, have you talked to him about how much of this business does this kid know? Because this is going to come back to us. So Franklin, Peaches, and Rob take a trip out to go see where Ben is. He's off in the sticks, some high-end area, hiding away. While heading up there, they give a gun to Rob. It is not clear exactly what's happening, because I'm like, in this moment, they could just take out Rob, but I think they set it up, and Franklin's smart, they set it up that eventually Rob is going to kill Ben. And he does. He shoots him, but he's shooting all over the place. He's high. He's not shooting correctly. And I also don't know if he's ever really handled a gun like that before, although he says he's been on the range. But he shoots him, and then he has to go in for the kill. And it's in that moment that he reveals that, can the CIA kind of get us out of that? Like, he gives up information that Frank kind of just puts in his Rolodex, but he knows that Rob's been talking. And unfortunately, when you start dealing with coke and people have loose lips and things just sort of come out. Peaches, Franklin, and Rob go to bury the body, and in that moment, Franklin shoots Rob. It doesn't seem like Peaches was in on that. He seems very shocked by that moment, but coming full circle, how many times Franklin was not willing to pull the trigger or do the dirty work. He's ready to handle his business now that he has the impetus of being a father on his plate. No strings can be sort of left out there. What is happening is that the people that are affected by the death of cocaine is starting to become very mainstream. Lynn Bias and white kids are starting to die. Like, even though Lynn Bias is a black person, he was playing on the Boston Celtics. He was about to be paid a lot of money. He was on one of the whitest teams humanly possible. It is now on a national stage, and thus that's starting to start closing in on around like Franklin. Like, that is what's happening. And so his handler, who has sort of taken the place of Reed / Teddy, Gary, is very extravagant. Like, he's banging people that are in Franklin's camp. He's having parties. He's going on the private jets. He is starting to become almost friends with Franklin. They are going into business together, and so that is how Reed, Teddy, sort of finds his way back in to handling this situation. He lets people. He basically does a espionage thing as an LED water and power person to sort of kind of scope the land and see how much extravagance is and what it's all doing. And it's sloppy. He's messy. And then he takes it back, and the man puts him back in the team. And he's like, can you handle the asset, which is Franklin? Franklin, I think that the biggest thing of all of this is that in addition to his empire crumbling in, he's built this empire on something that he is not in full control of. Like, he is allowed to do these things because someone has put him in a place to do that. They put a battery in his back, he's able to go. Which is always why I'm amazed that he's willing to do as many things as he can, because he's not in complete control of it. But he sees it, Teddy goes and like, hey, I can handle it. And the man is like, even with you handling and taking care of his father, which I don't believe Franklin is still quite aware of. So the second episode is a lot of Teddy putting himself back on the chessboard, putting himself back in place. And he handles Gary in a very Teddy way, tricks him, has a one-on-one conversation with him first to sort of like, hey, you should get out. And he doesn't. And Teddy's like, cool, then we're going to end this the way that I had. And he takes him off the board, kills him. Before we get to the meat of Franklin and Teddy at the very end, in episode 2, you also get Louis and Uncle Jerome starting to make moves on their own. They're doing gun supplies with some of Franklin's old connects. Louis also has a connect with a crooked cop who's she's been tipping off with things to sort of level the playing field and level the competition as far as for them to do drug busts. And the payment for that is her receiving some type of protection. She's kind of getting a little bit of a protective seal from the police. So it's sort of a quid pro quo, a tit for tat for them. And that's how she's sort of keeping her stuff afloat. There's an entire business venture that Franklin and his new girl sort of come up with to legitimize, come up with this new housing, to buy housing, and then sort of sit on it for 3 years, let it appreciate, get value, and then possibly sell it back or continue on. And he brings that up to all 3 of the levels. He's fully in. Louis she's given a book that she seems to be possibly in, but Jerome's kind of like, I gotta wait 3 years to get my $10 million back, and that's kind of all they have as a group. The two of them, really, that's putting all their funds in there. And Leon wants no parts of it. Leon's good, even though he's proud, like, because Franklin tells him why he's doing this to be a dad. He's like, oh man, that's great and good for you. But he's good with just this. Like, this is all he wants. He just wants to be the corner boy, have enough money to do what he needs to do, and be with Wanda. Franklin is like, yo, you're hiding money in a shoebox, and you don't really have assets. Like, let's make this move. And that's just not where his head's at. We also have a situation where Wanda loses her job at the phone operator, the only job that she could really have, and she asks Leon to sort of put her on the block. Something that sounds like it had occurred the way that they say it about a year before, and she just couldn't because she was around too much temptation. See, that being the same case, I don't think anything has changed. I don't know why she would be around that now. It definitely is leading to a path where there are all of these players, Louis, Franklin, and Leon, all have something that is their heart that is not them, that can be easily removed, like that can be effective and affect them in a painful way. Leon's with Wanda. Franklin is his family now, and Louis with Jerome. They all have something that they can be hurt with, and so it leaves a little bit of vulnerability for all of them. And I am Wanda concerns me. I don't know if Wanda's going to make it throughout this entire season. But we get the final sort of tit for tat as after Franklin calls his mom and lets him know that she's pregnant because he hasn't seen his mom. They talk through these really muffled phone call conversations that, if I were him, I don't know if I'd be giving up that valuable amount of information on a phone because I'm sure at some point in time they're going to be tapped, and you've just given the world the idea that you're pregnant. He's being a little loose with that pregnancy, and somebody who is as powerful as him, I feel like it's going to come back to bite him in the ass. Final sequence of commitment is Franklin and Reed, as he knows him, coming face to face again, and in that it starts off cordial. They're being having pleasantries with each other, but it is clear that Teddy is basically telling Franklin everything you were doing with Gary. He was messy. It was too friendly. You guys were binding the who worked for whom situation, and now we removed it. We're going to get back to the old way of things. It's an interesting power play. Franklin is standing up while Reed is sitting down, and he offers him a cigar, but he keeps the cigar box open, which anybody who's a cigar head knows that when you're going to keep that humidity in there, so you're going to close that. The reason why he has it open, as we learned, is that he has a gun stashed in the cigar box, so that if this goes left anyway, he is as prepared as he can possibly be against Reed, who's a trained killer. I don't know how well that would have worked out for him, but he at least thought or had the mindset that I need to be on the up and up because everything that he's coming in, I don't trust this dude. But he basically says, I'm back in the play. I'm your new handler. I'm the one who you come through. Franklin's like, hey, we had to deal with Gary that we were going to lower the cocaine thing. He's like, no, we're going to keep the prices the same, which is going to have an effect on the entire trade as a whole. And then we leave, and that Reed, he's like, Franklin calls him Reed again. He's like, yeah, just real quick, Reed's dead. You can call me Teddy from now. Like, he's keeping his real name. He's being 100% as real as he possibly can because he is back in this to make sure that, like, Franklin remembers that at the end of the day, you do what the hell I say you do. And as lavish as you are living, I control this. And that is sort of the power play. So now Franklin already has, while he doesn't know this was happening yet, he's got the national media about to come down on him. The fact that white kids are dying, starting to come in on him. And now Teddy's back to sort of make this crumble in even more on his empire. He's been living on cloud nine, and it seems like now, these first 2 episodes, all of that is about to come to a screeching halt and kind of just on his doorstep. It is going to be fascinating to see how this all sort of plays in. It is a crazy chess match that is being set up. As Teddy's already gotten Gustavo back sort of in fold. He's like, hey, yo, I'm back. And Gustavo's like, all right, then I'm with you. He's like, I like Gary. Gary was fun, but I'll ride with you if you're the person that's here. So a lot of the chess pieces are back in play with all of them, with Leon, Louis, all having a level of control of their own fate in their own working environment, but they all work under Franklin, who is now working for somebody who is Teddy's kind of a madman. But yeah, it's going to be a wild ride for these next 8 episodes. We start off with a good layering of what's to come and sort of the onus and the shadow that's happening in the background as the season continues. What did you guys think about the first 2 episodes of Snowfall Season 5, both Comets and Commitment? Great, leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other place podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.